goodness. I just finished reading a bunch of commentary about how people thought the closing arguments went for Melody. And if you go by them, that woman does not stand a chance of being found not guilty. I also watched the closing arguments. And I was struck so much by a couple of things. For starters, I don't know how closely y'all watched it, but the first half of the prosecution's argument, it wasn't an argument based on facts, except the fact that you're not supposed to fall for the defense tactics. But all she did was talk about the truth, the truth, the truth. And it fell short for me because I didn't think they proved the truth. They proved things that led up to the truth and scenarios that could have been the truth. But did they really uncover the truth? I didn't think so. And so then I listened to the defense's closing, the first guy, not the bald guy, and I thought he did an amazing job. And then when the other defense lawyer got on, and I mean, it was almost comical that he almost had a heart attack with those bags. And I gotta wonder, did he realize that it was going to make him so winded that he barely could finish talking? And that was a definite misstep because he should have had help. And he should have had like 5 girls struggling that were healthy and had good hearts, because that was scary for a couple of minutes, him losing his breath like that. But I still thought it was a very powerful argument. And as far as dragging him or rolling him, I think you would have seen evidence of that if the prosecution would have done a better investigation. I mean, it was just almost ridiculous, all the answers that they didn't provide that they could have provided, just leaving a few little snippets of things, but so much of a mountain of evidence with all the investigation. You see some investigations that leave no stone unturned, and I just don't understand why this wasn't one of those cases. And then when the prosecution gets back on and she does her part 2, now she's angry, okay? First time she was just saying over and over, gotta get the truth. Don't fall for the defense's lies. Gotta get the truth. But then in her second part, she started to get amped up and she was very disrespectful and just disgusted and annoyed. And I'm sorry, but that's not what I want to hear when I hear a closing argument. I want you, if you're the state, to bring me through what exactly in the opening argument, what you're about to see, so that I can be on the lookout for the points that you made in your opening argument and take notes and go, okay, tick, tick, tick. And the closing arguments, I want you to go through piece by piece what you did prove. And she did not do that. She touched on a couple of things finally towards almost the end, but giving her cookie scenario about her child and her dog, and how disgusted she was practically through the whole second part, angry and sarcastic, and she just didn't endear herself to me at all. Because I just think of, and I'm going to bring his name out again, but Mark O'Mara. Never once did he, in his closing, which was a very touchy closing that he had to be very careful because it was such a sensitive subject of the killing of Trayvon Martin, he did it so gracefully and brought all the facts that you needed to know, but he kept his outrage at a minimum. And the only time that he was really annoyed is when he made the statement, don't ever let I don't know what we want to call it, that the state should have been embarrassed for demanding the time of the jury and wasting their time on a case that was half-baked. So that was a good point, because I don't think he disparaged anyone except for the prosecution, which I hated them. They were horrid. But anyway, I just think that she just lost them. Plus, she wouldn't sit down. I'm talking about the prosecutor now. She just wouldn't sit down and talk about overstating your case. That's definitely what she tried to do. And when she ran out of facts and steam, she still kept going. And she lost me. And so I'm hoping that today they're going to deliberate some more and not come up with a verdict. Because if they do that, that will tell us that they really considered how poorly the prosecution, even if we get a conviction, they're still going to show you that a jury deliberating that long shows that there were tons of holes in that case. And if they do come back with a guilty verdict, it's probably only going to be because the majority, from what I'm reading out there, and the commentators and everybody, they feel that the case was totally proved through circumstantial evidence. But I don't think it was, because it only outlined all the circumstances leading up to and motive for the murder. But the actual murder, I don't think it really brought it home. So we're just going to have to see. But I'm going to say again that when I couldn't help but think of Wendi Adelson, because for so long, everybody is so positive that she's guilty and so mad that they are not seeing an arrest for her and, all of that. But from a very long time ago, when I first started watching this case, I also felt that way. But then I watched a video about what confirmation bias is, and it explained the way that if you see everything through a certain lens, you're going to feel a certain way. Period. End of story. Full stop. And that's what I thought was happening with Wendi, because if you were to arrest her and then get like John Laurel or some really, high-priced attorney, they're going to be able to shoot holes in every single solitary piece of evidence you have. And how do I know this? Because she even was able to do it on the stand. Just like Scott, every time they were like, the defense was like, bring me my card now. Scott was like, no, that's not how he meant it. He was like, bring me my card now, as if I got to go. And, if they want to, there's just a way to get around a lot of evidence. And I think that if she is found not guilty, then this is exactly the way a trial putting Wendi on the stand and everything, arresting Wendi and trying to get a conviction for her would go. But I still think it would have been worth it, because can you imagine how miserable they could have made her by arresting her and having her go through the whole trauma of a trial and staying in jail and all of that. And to me, since she's getting away obviously scot-free, I'd settle for that. I'd settle with her making her life miserable for a year or two. Hell yeah. That's why I always felt that the state should have arrested her anyway and just put her through living hell, even if they can't prove their case. But I guess they don't do things like that. And from what I understand, if they don't think they can prove their case, then they aren't allowed to even try it. But truthfully, I think they would have thought that they could. I don't know. That's a whole hornet's nest. But I'll be really interested in seeing the outcome of this trial. And if she is found not guilty, then I'll feel better that Wendi was not arrested all this time. And if she's found guilty, and I shouldn't even say if, because if you read all the comments and the polls and everything else, there's no way that she won't be found guilty. But if you read all of those, you also would have thought they'd find her guilty in the first hour or two, just like they did in Sarah Boone. So that kind of making me think that they do have some doubt. Whereas to me, Sarah Boone, there was no doubt. It was open and shut. And they still had to work really hard, but they got their conviction. So it just remains to be seen. But I'm very curious. And I'm leaning towards not guilty. Well, definitely she's guilty. If anything, she's guilty like Wendi is guilty of being the worst person in the world. But as far as proving that she solely was responsible, not there. They just didn't have it. We'll see. All right. Thanks, y'all. Bye now.